All right, good morning, everybody. Good morning. It is 7:30. It's Wednesday morning, and we're going to talk about some goodness. We're going to talk about this trucker strike. Yes, sir. So let's do this.
Hello, everybody.
All right, good morning, everybody. Good morning. I see Fish and Golf has first blood again. Y'all gonna have to get up early in the morning to beat Fish and Golf on the draw. That brother is slinging lead like you can't imagine, because I think he's got about 75% of my recent first bloods, if not more. But Uncle Steve, not too late to the game. Good to see you there. So this morning I'm going to talk about the trucker strike, and buddy, I'm here for it. But I'm going to have to say I'm only cautiously optimistic, and I'm going to get into that a little bit. But first, I want to talk to you a little bit about something I did last night. My aunt has gotten involved with the Historic Society in Milledgeville, and actually, if you bear with me, I hadn't planned on talking about this morning, but I do want to give it at least a little bit of the conversation this morning. So she's involved with the Historic Society, and last night I went and covered down on the Georgia Old Capitol Heritage Center at the Depot, and here's their Facebook page. And they had a speaker last night, T.M. Brown, author of a book called The Last Laird of Sapelo. The guy is a pretty excellent historian, and as you can see, I had just a little bit of a hiccup there as we were getting the video started. So, and here was the funny thing. So I went to run the live stream because the ladies there they weren't sure what to do about running the live stream, and all they wanted to do was go live on Facebook. My Aunt Karen called me the other day and asked me if I could help her do that, and I said, absolutely, no problem. I mean, obviously, I know what I'm doing. I'm live on Facebook every day. Then we got off the phone, and I said to myself, no, now hold on a minute. Let me think about what she just asked me, because what she wants to do is do a Facebook Live spot. Now, what I do every morning with this show is a lot more complicated than that, right? So what I'm doing every morning with this show is I use a service called Restream, and it's similar to StreamYard and a few other services out there, but what it is I produce the show in-house through a program called OBS, right? Which is the open broadcast service. It's a free piece of software that you could use to manage all the various elements: the microphone, the camera, the sound mixer, right? The displays that get shared, all that stuff. And setting it up is somewhat complex, requires some knowledge, and you have to get RTMP data from Facebook and YouTube and X and everywhere else that you're going to be streaming to, and you put it all together, and then the service, which is it's not a terribly expensive service. I think I'm paying like $400 a year for it, something like that. It's not awful, and that's for the professional level package that gives me a lot more options, because I use this for I use Restream to do like funerals and weddings and stuff too. But it occurred to me after I got off the phone with her, I said to myself, Self, I know how to do all this on the professional level, but I don't think I have ever in my life used Facebook to do a live video as just a regular Joe doing a live on Facebook thing, right? I'm not selling magic pearls and shit like that. So I had to actually pull out the phone and pull it up. Okay, this is stupid easy, right? I'm not crazy, right? This is going to be stupid easy. And I pulled, okay, cool. Stupid easy. So I went down there and I donated a lavalier set to make sure that they had good, solid quality audio. And here, I'll just...
Okay, when you go out Sparta Road, as soon as you go over to Coney Bridge, okay, the Coney River, and on the left up about, I'm not even a quarter of a mile, there's a side road.
A nice little lavalier mic on there that made for an excellent quality production, and that was pretty good. Thomas Waller says, BTW, Chris came in clutch for Cornell College's commencement ceremony in 2021. And it's funny. Waller, I'm glad you mentioned that. I did. And that was a good project. I'd love to do any of those again. Those are great little projects. But they sent me last year in 2023. Cornell sent me some kind of tax document, and it was weird. It was surreal because it seemed like they were threatening to fire me because I hadn't produced anything for over a year. I'm like, now hold on a minute. I don't remember you hiring me for anything beyond that one ceremonial video. But that was a great little project, and hell yeah, I'll be thrilled to do anything like that again too. With that one, they basically had y'all were doing a live stream of the commencement ceremony, and I produced title credits for that, and that's the kind of thing when that's a large professional organization, and when you're working with a group like that, anybody can pop into Photoshop and slap together some pictures, pull them into Premiere with just a little bit of knowledge, turn out a short video clip that somebody can then stitch onto the end of a video, and that's all relatively easy. When you're dealing with something like Cornell College, right? When you're dealing with a large professional organization like that, you're talking about a group that has professionally managed media style standards, and so you can't just say, oh well, their colors are white and purple or blue and green or whatever. You have to say, oh no, their colors are pound 378 blah 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 blah, or their exact RGB profile is this, and you have to get hex codes and all that stuff, and you have to know how to work with those colors so that what you're putting in is exactly the correct color. You're not going to eyeball and try and get close. It is mathematically exact, and that's a step above and beyond what your Joe Blow memer on Reddit or 4chan is able to do. So and Veronica Freeman joins us this morning, and she said hi to my mother. So I appreciate you, Veronica. In fact, saying hi to my mother in the morning is a great way to get a top comment badge. Hallelujah. Love you, Mom. So let's get into the trucker strike thing. Here's what's going on. The judgment has just come down just in the last couple of days against Donald Trump. He's being found to owe $355 million. Now, in the wake of that, Letitia James, the city of New York, not only have they banned the Trump family and the Trump organization from doing business or seeking credit in the state of New York and fined him $355 million. Now they're threatening to actually seize his properties in New York. They're just going to steal his buildings. They're just going to it's essentially the state version of nationalizing the individual's Trump properties. It's psychotic. Now let me back you up a little bit and remind you of how we got to this position. Letitia James decided to prosecute Donald Trump on the charges of fraud. Here is how she claims that he has committed the crime. Crime is important. That word is incredibly important here. Committed the crime of fraud. Her contention is that he overvalued his properties and misrepresented the value of those properties for the purpose of securing loans, and in so doing, he defrauded those banks. Now, let's be real clear about how this works. You're talking about a real estate investor who owns properties, and for the sake of placing those properties as collateral to secure loans to conduct other real estate investments and development projects to fund construction, he has to value those properties. He has to assign them a value. Now, a government tax assessor may say that the property is worth X, right? Let's say you own a hotel, and that hotel is valued by the assessor at being worth $1 million on the land that it sits on, wherever you are. But you make $1.5 million off of that property in revenue annually. That's not just a property, that's a business. So if you're going to sell that business, you're not going to sell it for the value of the property. You're going to sell the business, including the property and whatever negotiated therewith attached accoutrement, for a value that makes sense against what you're selling. Typically, that's going to be at a 5 or 10 year valuation. So if you make, $1.5 million every year, and you're going to sell that property, you're going to say, okay, well, if I sell it to you now, then that's 5 years that I don't make $1.5 million every year. So I'll sell it to you for $7.5 million, right? And that's how property guys, that is super dummy down. Okay, I'm doing this in broad strokes to idiot proof the conversation so that you can understand that that's beyond below 101 business for dummies breakdown of how these valuations work. So the judge says the property's not worth what Donald Trump said it was worth. Here's the problem with that argument. The banks made the loans. That's something that they did voluntarily. And in the course of doing that, the bank agreed with the assessment that the property was worth what Donald Trump said it was worth. Now, within the confines of those individual negotiations, it is highly probable that part of what happened is the Trump organization said, building A is worth X, and the bank said, no, building A is only worth Z, and the Trump organization said, how about we agree that the building is actually worth Y? And the bank said, yeah, we'll go for Y. Right? Trump said big number, bank said smaller number, and they go for a middle number. And that's how those things work. That is the normal course of business for all credit extensions, period. If that has not been your personal experience for the acquisition of credit, it's because you have allowed yourself to be too far outside of the discussion and the negotiation on the determination of that particular value. But it happened, even if it only happened behind the scenes with your credit card company where you weren't paying attention. That's how that works. I need this much money. Well, what do you have that'll guarantee we don't lose our money if you decide not to pay us back? Hold on. Let me know in the comments, guys. I hear a noise, and I don't know if it's something that's coming through the speaker or if it's my tinnitus. This is awful. Okay, I'm trying not to let it distract me. If something blows up behind me, let me know. So the judge determined that the fraud occurred. When I say that, understand, this is mind-numbing. All of the creditors in question said, no, there was no fraud. We did good deals with Donald Trump. We made a shitload of money, and we plan to do more business with him in the future based on the same factors, because we made a shitload of money, and he paid back all the loans, right? And that's actually an important factor. Every loan that's in question in the course of this case has already been paid back in full. Right, the claim that the judge and the prosecutor make, in part, should turn on whether or not those contracts have been fulfilled. So, the fact is, the absolute immutable fact is that at the barest minimum, in the cases which were considered for the course of this, and I won't say trial, I'll get to that in a second. In the course of this decision, no fraud can have been found to have occurred because the contracts were entered voluntarily and the terms of the contracts were met, and those contracts are completed and closed. Even if it were the case that he had entered those contracts fraudulently in some arguable way, that they have been settled and closed in compliance with the contract terms to everyone's voluntary satisfaction, vitiates any claim that the initial contract was taken in bad faith. A fraud case never existed. But this judge, who swore an oath, has decided, fuck the Sixth Amendment. We don't need that shit here in New York City. Trial by a jury of your peers. Donald Trump has no peers. He gets no trial. Fuck him, he's guilty. That's what this case is. There was no trial. The judge issued a directed verdict of guilt. The only thing the jury was allowed to consider is after the judge directed a verdict of guilt, a summary judgment, without trial, and not just without evidence, right? You'll hear this all the time in the news. So and so claims without evidence. This judge did not find against Trump without evidence. This Trump found against Trump. This judge found against Trump in contravention of the counterindicative evidence of absolutely disculpatory claim. All of the evidence which does exist, and especially in a legal system where you're innocent until proven guilty, this is actually quite rare because one cannot prove a negative. One can only prove a counterfactual to be impossible. Right? So, if I say I didn't murder so-and-so, well, I can't prove that I didn't murder him. I can only prove that it was impossible for me to have murdered him. With me on that? So, all of the evidence that existed for the judge to consider was contraindicative of all of the claims made by the prosecutor. Right? The individual bank said there was no harm. Crime is harm. If the alleged victims not only espouse, but offer documentation to prove in the counterindicative that harm did not occur or even exist, then the fact is that you have proved the innocence. In a system where it's very difficult to prove innocence. And that's why most high crimes are considered not to have been proved unless proved beyond a reasonable doubt. In this case, Donald Trump's innocence has been proved beyond a reasonable doubt. That is a rare and difficult thing. Legion says, if the Republicans controlled Congress and did nothing for a 2-year session but impeach fucked up federal judges at the expense of every other priority, I would be satisfied. You know what? I would actually be comfortable. In fact, I am rapidly coming to the place, Legion, where anything that any Congress does that is not the impeachment of some federal official, I would argue that at this moment, every action other than the impeachment of a federal official is a departure from their oath, because the infestation is so complete and so insidious. All right, right? Never forget, McCarthy was right. There are fucking commies everywhere. Now, and all that's why the truckers are talking about striking. I know. I spent too much time on the court case. Let's get to the truckers for a minute. At the beginning of this, I said I am cautiously optimistic about the truckers. A couple years ago, there was another trucker strike that looked like it was going to be a big deal, and we were super excited about it. Cameron and I both. Cameron even called in from a hotel where he had to fight to get Wi-Fi just to get on the line, and we did a live stream. We had one of the organizers from that trucker strike come on, and we talked, and buddy, I did my homework. I had all the facts and figures. We have this many truckers. We're short truckers, this many truckers. We need this. I mean, I had all the facts. I didn't do that kind of homework on this one, because I'm only cautiously optimistic. Now, let's say, hopefully, these truck drivers go full on siege on New York City, right? I'd love to see the truckers who refuse to go to New York City. I'd like to actually see them go there and block the roads, right? I'm not a fan of the road blocking tactic. But the enemy does it, and maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to accept them at face value and say, look, when evil people say that they will do evil things, it's not unreasonable to believe them. Darn Tootin asks, who else besides Chicago Ray is talking about this? There's actually quite a few of them. I'm on Chicago Ray's page right now. And this is not Chicago Ray. This is the disrespected trucker being shared by Chicago Ray. We'll listen to him for just a minute, in just a minute. But we did the big live stream with one of the organizers the last time they talked about a truck driver strike, and then the whole strike just fell apart. And I would say I was embarrassed. I was more aggravated that we'd given the guy the time and spent my time on it, and then they just kind of shit the bed. But this one looks like it's picking up a little more substantially, and in the other one, it was more of a demonstration than a strike. They were going to a place, and then they just didn't go. In this one, all they have to do is keep doing their job, just accept other loads.
Hello, everybody. I thought I'd get on here and do a video.
We're not going to list all of this because it's 3 minutes.
To explain a few of the truths about this New York City trucker boycott. Number one, whether you're a liberal Democrat or conservative, you can agree on one thing, and that one thing is called freedom. You see, I'm just one guy out of an industry with 3.9 million truck drivers that has publicly stated that I will not haul any loads to New York City and support the New York City boycott in support of Trump. I'm a trucker for Trump. You see, that's my freedom of choice. Just like Chicago Ray or American Trucker or any of the other truckers that you see posting about this New York City boycott, they are one guy out of an industry of 3.9 million truck drivers that have made a choice to not go to New York. That is their freedom of choice.
Okay, that's the bit that I wanted to get through. So the point that he's making there is that there's no like central organization. This is mostly independent truckers. And the way the independent truckers work, their gig's actually kind of like mine as far as organizationally. So there's a central, there are central agencies that say, hey, we've got these gigs available. Right, the way the independent truckers work is in a lot of ways kind of like Uber before Uber was Uber, right? So you don't have a boss that says, hey, take X from location A to location B. No. There's a centralized agency that says, okay, we've got this route, this route, this route. This one pays X, this one pays Y, this one pays Z. Which one do you want? And you take one, right? Well, you got to understand that as these truckers are looking at what just happened in New York and they want to do something to support Donald Trump, it's not just that they are politically conservative. It's not just that they're concerned about what's happening in New York. You're talking about men whose livelihoods are tied to the price of gas, right? Their pay didn't skyrocket when the price of gas quadrupled almost overnight. And these are diesel trucks, right? So their gas went up by more than ours at several points throughout the couple of your regular MoGas that you put in your little pick-em-up truck. That is not what's going in these trucks. They're not running on JP8, but these guys have taken a real hit financially, and that is directly the result of Joe Biden's very intentional actions to cause harm to this country. Legion says correct, and if the delivery rate goes up as a result of indies refusing loads, the company truckers will leap for that money. That's correct. The company truckers will leap for that money. You'll see some kind of scab stuff going on, but it's not exactly the scab thing, because the independent truckers don't have a union. They are independent. I mean, these guys are essentially modern day privateers, right? Yeah, that's probably fair. Yeah, it's not like they're out there raiding and doing road piracy in between taking legitimate contracts, but that kind of, free life, free stuff. You might, as an independent trucker, you might take a load from Georgia to New York and then just spend a week hanging out in New York, right? Or you might just stay on the road for 6 months straight and then take a year off. You basically do what you want to do. So that is kind of a double-edged sword for a situation like this. There's nothing to stop any of these guys other than personal preference and personal finances from engaging in this activity. And New York, while it is a big city and there's a lot of money to be made taking deliveries to New York, it is far from the only city. And we are still in a desperate shortage of truck drivers, which means there is plenty of supply to meet the demand when the truckers say, hey, I want loads that I can take that don't go to New York. There's plenty of loads out there that don't go to New York. Legion points out U.S. truckers have bluffed twice. I suspect this will be the same. It might be, but there is a lot of furious sentiment involved here. And I'll remind you that they've bluffed twice, but they haven't only done something like this twice. A few years ago, there was a major finding against a truck driver who was in a terrible, terrible accident. Some people died. And it's probably even fair to say that the driver was actually at fault and should have suffered some legal consequences. But he was sentenced to some ridiculous, 150 years in prison or something The truckers came together and boycotted Colorado, and they turned that shit around real quick, and his sentence was reduced to 10 years. So the outcome that they got there, I don't remember the names involved. It's been a couple of years. I remember covering the story when it happened. But anyway, in that case, it looks to me like the outcome that they got was they got legitimate justice for this guy, because while he was probably at fault and it was probably reasonable for him to be fined and even confined for a period, it's one thing to say, we want you to spend some time in jail. It's entirely another thing to say, we've decided to end your life, but we haven't the compassion to allow you to die. Just make no mistake, a 150-year prison sentence, that's what that is. We've decided that we, the state, are going to take your life. But, we're going to take your life without allowing you the sweet reprieve of death. We've decided that we're not going to take a risk on God's judgment, and we're going to create our own little hell for you. Because fuck you. Because we're the government. We don't trust God's judgment. We can make you suffer here. And we're going to do that just in case you manage to get to the other side of the gates. So, yes, they've bluffed and flubbed twice, but they've actually had quite a few serious success stories like that. So I'm cautiously optimistic. And I hope to see it happen. I am all for siege tactics on these rogue states. So, and I'll close with this. I want to be very clear about what we're looking at with things like New York City, New York State, the stuff that's going on in Atlanta with Fannie Willis. This isn't just corruption. This goes far beyond that. You're looking at rogue actors who have managed to put their hands on the levers of federal and government and state power, and they are using those weapons to conduct rogue activities. They are not governing poorly. They are going out of their way to use the weapons of government to cause harm to citizens who are not guilty of crimes. They are monsters. They are evil. They are those domestic enemies against whom those of us who've worn the uniform have sworn to uphold and defend, not the country, not the people, and sure as hell not the fucking government, but the Constitution. Sergeant Major says warfare by sabotage. Exactly. They're French. And, you know, I'm not a fan. This is how I'm fighting right now. This is what I'm doing to fight. As much as I love my cartridge box, for the sake of my country, for the sake of my Constitution, I am going to try and stay on the soapbox and try and stay on the ballot box. And so I will stand on this soapbox and try to motivate those of you who take the time to tune in and have a cup of coffee with me. By the way, cheers. And try to motivate all of you to get to that ballot box. So this is the last thing I'm going to say, and then I've got to get to a meeting. Getting to that ballot box. Part of what cost Donald Trump 2020 was, I'm sorry, no. Donald Trump had more votes in 2020 than he had in 2016. Right? That's amazing. Stryker says 4 boxes. Um, 4 boxes. Soap box, ballot box, cartridge box. You're going to have to help me out with the 4th box, Striker. I think I've missed your comment there if there was a joke in it. And you completely derailed me. Oh, so okay, it wasn't 2020. So 2021, right? Oh, Stryker, yes, the jury box, yes, jury nullification, hell yes. We've talked about that before, and that's something we're going to do whole shows on again in the future. Yes, the jury box. Thank you. The 2021 special election in Georgia that got us landed with Warnock and Ossoff. That one. That's where we lost the Senate because people just didn't show up. A lot of Republicans bought into that PSYOP bullshit. And we kept saying it on the show. These guys are fucking Democrats. Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell. These guys have been Democrats forever. You cannot trust anything they're saying now. It's a PSYOP. And we were saying that before it happened. And then they came to Georgia and they said, you need to boycott the vote. You need to boycott this election. Don't waste your time. Send a clear signal that you know that 2020 was stolen. You send a clear signal by showing them that you're not going to go and cast your vote because you know that the system is broken and you cannot win this election because there isn't a legitimate election. So you boycott the vote to make a political statement. And what happened? Oh, that's right. You didn't show up and vote, so you fucking lost. So, here's how I want you to think about elections and election fraud going forward. This is important. Alex asked, didn't you go to their rally in Marietta? I did. I went there, I filmed it, and I commented on it. And one of the things that I had a lot to say about, Alex, after that one, is at that rally that you're talking about, and I actually laughed out loud when it happened. Len Wood gets up there and he gives his whole spiel about boycotting the vote and everything. And you can say a lot about, oh damn it, what's his name? Vernon Jones, right? You say a lot about Vernon Jones. The man's a politician, used to be a Democrat, can't trust him, da 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 da. But that day, Len Wood gave his spiel about boycotting the vote, and Vernon Jones got up there and said, whoa, no. Right, on the stage, took the microphone from Len Wood and said, no, y'all got to go vote. Y'all got to get out there and vote. Vote. If you don't vote, you can't win. Right, and that was one of those moments that Vernon got a little bit more of my respect. But when you think about the vote, when you think about elections, I want you to think about it like this. I'm gonna get into a little bit of theology and philosophy real quick, and then I got to go. I got about 5 minutes. I want you to consider the vote in the same way that you consider faith with Pascal's bargain. Pascal's wager. Pascal's wager goes like this. If you believe that there is a God, and there is, you win. Because you believe correctly and you go to heaven, cool. If you believe there is not a God, and it turns out that you're wrong, you go to hell. If you believe that there is a God, if you believe that there's not a God, and it turns out that you're right, and there is no God, there is no heaven and hell, then you lose nothing because nothing happens. If you believe there is no God, and if you believe there is a God, and you turn out to be wrong, nothing happens. So either there is a God, and you can choose to go to heaven or hell, or there isn't a God, And your choice not to believe profits you nothing whether you're right or wrong. The vote works like that. Either the vote is legitimate, and when you vote, you are doing something and you can win, or it's impossible to win whether you vote or not, in which case, if you don't vote, nothing changes. But if it is possible to win and you don't vote, you lose every time. So the only rational choice is to operate on the hopeful optimism that the vote still retains some legitimacy and gamble on taking the time to go and cast that ticket. If you don't go vote, you can only lose. You got 4 options, right? The vote works, and you believe that. All of your other options end in failure. There is no choice to be made there. That's Pascal's wager, but for the vote. So, y'all be safe. Thanks for watching this morning. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.